My name is Tate, and I'm every teenager's worst nightmare. They know that our paths must cross, so they come to me with fear and trembling, because I'm the worst person of all. Worse than the Grim Reaper, worse than the Grinch who stole Christmas. I am, yes, you guessed it, a mathematics teacher. So let me start by introducing to you some of my colleagues, fellow conspirators in the punishment that we exact on young children. This gentleman is known as Pythagoras of Seamus. And it's a shame. And he's a mathematician, well known for what's now called the Pythagoras theorem. The Pythagoras theorem states that the square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides. It's just a fancy way of saying that square A and square B will fit exactly into square C. This distinguished young man is Leonhard Euler. Euler is a very prolific mathematical writer, and some call him the most prolific mathematical writer. He wrote journals and journals and journals about mathematics, and most famously, Euler's formula. Now, Euler's formula relates to complex number theory, and for this, he's known as the father of modern-day trigonometry. Fun. And of course, this gentleman you all know, Albert Einstein. All right? And he's most well known for his theory of relativity, E equals mc squared. All right? Which basically is a relationship between the energy and the mass within a system. All right. Now that you know these friends of mine, let us move along in terms of how we punish young children. And not to worry, I have the full consent of their parents, and they've informed their children that they will endure this torture and punishment, and in fact, they must enjoy it. The parents have also been so kind as to inform me that if their little darling does not excel in my subject, then I have doomed them to failure. So here's the scenario. I walk into a classroom every day, bearing this weight of having to teach this all-important subject. And in front of me, 20-something young people, each one of them very anxious and fearful, because in the next 45 minutes, I will deliver to them the keys to the kingdom, because the only way to success is mathematics. So there we sit. But there's a slight problem, and this will come as a surprise to most of you. I sit there and I teach them mathematics, and sometimes the eyes looking back at me tell me, not everybody gets it the first time around. So what do we do? Well, we have a solution for this. Not to worry. The solution is more focus and more time for mathematics. So we tell everybody that they must focus more. My student, who's an equestrian sportswoman, must cease to ride so that she can focus on mathematics. There's a young lady who's a wonderful singer and about to record her first single. She may no longer sing until her mathematics marks are up to standard. We curtail our sports programs so that we can make space for extra maths in the afternoons. In fact, every other activity that is not mathematics must be cut away so that we can focus and add more time to mathematics. That's the solution, right? Unfortunately, having done this for a significant period of time, we're finding it doesn't always work. In fact, it doesn't work. Our averages are not suddenly going up. Interest in the subject is waning. Our understanding of the subject is not improved. So we're back where we started. My name is Tate. I am not just a maths teacher, I'm also a musician and music producer. And the three gentlemen that I introduced to you in the beginning, there's a common thread about all three and their formulae. Pythagoras of Seamus, not just a mathematician, but also a Greek philosopher and musician. In fact, his first writings were about harmony in music. And he argued that harmony can be created by analyzing the relationship between space and ratio. The interesting thing is that Pythagoras' theorem was based on the same assumption: ratio and relationship. We are right there. Great. Leonhard Euler prolific mathematical writer, also prolific musical writer. In fact, he started Euler's formula in his writings in a new discipline that he called musical mathematics. The interesting thing about musical mathematics is that it was discarded because it was considered too musical for the mathematicians and too mathematical for the musicians. Albert Einstein, a violinist and pianist, and when asked about how he discovered this formula, his wife had this to say: he played the piano for weeks and weeks and weeks, and in between, he came up with a little formula. So perhaps our approach here needs to change slightly. This led me to try a new experiment in my classroom, to bring music into my classroom and see what happens. A few years ago, the whole world was engulfed in what is now known as the Mozart effect. The Mozart effect says that listening to particular pieces of music for a specific period of time every day will increase your intellectual capacity. Sounds easy enough. But we've now discovered that while Mozart effect is real for the short term, it has no permanent value. So if you want to remember what I said 2 minutes ago, you can go ahead and listen to a few pieces of Mozart and it'll help you. But in the long term, we discovered that engaging in music, actually physically doing something that engages you in an artistic form, creates new pathways in the brain. So I tried this in my lessons. I interrupt my lessons. And I interrupt them with music. We sing, we compose melodies, we write lyrics, anything that allows the children to just engage creatively. And then we go back to our mathematical problem. The most amazing thing started to happen. The children were now solving mathematical problems in a brand new way. They were thinking about it laterally. They were thinking out of the box. They were innovative. They were creative. They were creating suggestions to the problem that you wouldn't conventionally think of. Now, it must be said that a lot of these suggestions and their solutions are conventionally incorrect. However, the important thing is that they're engaging the subject matter. They were asking questions about the material. How did this problem come about? Who was Pythagoras? How can we figure out what he was thinking when he created this theorem? It opened a brand new world in my classroom. The kids were engaging in this subject that normally they hated, normally they were anxious about. Normally I felt a lot of pressure teaching. So the success of this experiment was twofold. Besides discovering that while all children love music, some are indeed tone deaf, it's a thing. But besides that, two things that were significant began to happen. Firstly, the anxiety in my classroom was hugely reduced. The children smiled, they laughed, they asked questions. Isn't this a wonderful thing for children to smile and laugh and ask questions? They were engaging in the subject material. The second most profound thing happened is that as they were doing this, they started to treat mathematics in a way that I hadn't anticipated, and in a way that I believe it should have been treated. They were treating it as a tool to solve problems. They were looking at it, engaging with it, and changing things about it. What can we do with this mathematics thing? They were creative, they were innovative, and they were looking at it in a brand new way. I was astounded. And it led me to start to think about our practice as educators in the entire education fraternity. I believe that our practice needs to be inclusive and not exclusive. We need to engage the right brain as well as the left. We need to allow our children to be creative and innovative in our classrooms. These are the values that are going to stand them in better stead in the future. We need to understand that the children that we teach are multidimensional individuals, and they must be stimulated in multiple dimensions. We also need to understand that music is a beautiful thing. Not just music, but I believe all art forms. And allowing our children to grow and develop holistically as well-rounded individuals can only do them a world of good. So do I still believe mathematics is a very important subject? Absolutely. The most important. Please, I need my job. But more than that, mathematics is a gateway. It's a way in which the children can engage. And we need to stimulate them in the entire being so that they can engage correctly. The next Pythagoras, the next Euler, the next Einstein will do so not by following formulas in a classroom, but they'll do so by engaging their whole beings and allowing themselves to be transformed as they do so. I'll conclude with a quote from Pablo Picasso, the great artist, who said, "Every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist as they grow up." My hope is that myself as an educator will never be a challenge to them remaining artists as they grow up. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.